All right. Good evening. Once again, my name is Ebony Thomas, and today's workshop is called Visual Legitimacy, Build the Brand They Take Seriously. And this is going to be how to build a credible brand presence with limited resources. Because today, everything is graphic design. Everything's about visuals. Everything's about looking good, poised, clean. This is culture, and this is the way that the world is today. But what's beautiful is that the ability to create graphics, to create flyers, to create a visual brand presence is inclusive and available to everyone. The great thing about that, like I said, is everyone has access. But the challenges are trying to make your brand look unique, look credible, and help build trust and help build a new base that's not getting confused of your brand looking like everyone else's. Because a lot of these tools that we have access to create a lot of things that have templates or things that look similar. And I'm going to help you today use some other free alternatives that will help you give a nice, unique look to your brand and to your presence. So this is what visual legitimacy is going to mean today, is that anything that you do with your brand, it speaks before you speak. No matter how good intentioned you are, no matter how good your food tastes, how bomb you do nails, it doesn't matter if people are looking at your brand and they're like, I don't want nothing to do with it, because they don't trust your visuals, they don't understand your visuals. And what I want you to do is, with your brands and with limited amounts of money and limited amounts of resources, look like a high Hollywood brand or Miami brand or a high Pittsburgh brand. We don't have to be in any other city but our own. So that is what I'm going to help you out today. I'm going to give you some tools, some design strategies, some ways to be visually consistent and responsible design practice. And that's going to be the way to make your brand stand out from other brands and similar brands that are within your same industry. All right, so once again, my name is Ebony Thomas. I have over 20 years of self-taught design experience. I am a girl who came from learning how to design using Microsoft Paint. And if you know about Microsoft Paint, it is not something that looks legitimate. But Photoshop back in the day, it's a subscription service now. You can get it for about $20 a month, or if you want to be really fancy, it's $70 a month. Goodness me. But back in the day, it was $600. And regardless, I didn't have money back in the day either. So what I had to do is use Microsoft Paint and other things to look as legitimate as Photoshop, which is known as the industry standard design tool. Luckily, since Canva came out, I believe back in 2013, it has made lots of jumps in accessibility to create graphic design, and it's really changed the game. And it's made Photoshop a little scared, because it's coming for them and everyone that they're forcing to pay $70 a month for. So resourcefulness built my creativity. I am, like I said, self-taught. I went to school for graphic design, but probably about almost a year into it, I realized that they were still teaching me things that I learned myself long ago. So to save some money, I left. And graphic design is one of those fortunate things where you can kind of circumvent the school thing and kind of be freelancing. So through that, I built many things. One of the main things is I created a clothing brand called Influential back in 2020. Carnegie Mellon kind of made a very racist map in which they created a nice map for college students. And so all the wonderful places you can travel across the city, and they left out all the hoods. They left out Homewood, they left out Hill District. They just made a map and just left them out. So in response, I created a shirt that brought back all those hoods called Hood Lives Matter. It got coverage on KDKA, it got coverage on Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and that was all built on a young girl coming from Microsoft Paint. So I'm just letting you know, all the things I learned today are based on 20 years of experience and being resourceful, and I want to pass that on to you so that your brand can look credible using your own version of Microsoft Paint. So entrepreneurship forces you to be resourceful, and design is no different. So who's here had to design with limited resources? You can raise your hand because everybody's chewing. Of course, we all had to. Because, like I said, Photoshop, which is the industry standard, is $70. Most of you all are graphic designers. You're an expert at whatever you're expert at, whatever your services are, whatever your events are offering. So things like that, we don't expect a normal, regular person to spend $70. But Canva has access. ChatGPT is free access. And just with that free access, just because a lot of people have access to it, most people don't have that kind of education to learn how to use it intentionally. So today I'm going to help you do that, because once again, entrepreneurs wear every hat. You know, you want to be, if you're doing nails, obviously you're designing nails. That's what you're an expert at. But you're also doing graphic design. You're also, you know, doing customer service. You're also kind of doing the PR and the marketing and the delivering. You're doing so much at once. And it's hard to be able to delegate that when you don't have any money, you know, because no one wants to do free volunteer work. But at the same time, you want to make sure that if anyone's working on your brand, you want to make sure it's done right and correct. You don't want to cut corners when it comes to your brand. So this is where visual legitimacy starts. So what you're going to walk away with today is brand identity. So you're going to build a visual presence from the ground up using my 3-3-3 rule, and we'll cover that later. Also, I'm going to offer you some design tools. So like I said, everybody knows about Canva and ChatGPT and Claude and so what, but I have some other not well-known design tools that are free and inexpensive that are going to help solidify your visual legitimacy even more. Also, in addition to that, I have visual assets, so you're going to have access to icons, customized fonts, because ChatGPT, everybody's just like, it's the same font all the time. But there's places where you can download custom fonts that will speak and more cover your brand. I'm going to show you where to get those fonts. I'm going to show you where to get good mock-ups of real photography. There's also, for Black and Brown, there's a specific website that shows us in real photography that you can use on your flyers and your mock-ups. Also, you know, color branding and just other little tiny graphic design things that I'm not going to overwhelm you with, but just enough so that you can stand out as soon as you leave tonight. And then finally is responsible design. And this is most important, one more things a lot of people don't understand. Because when you use, oh, go ahead.
I wanted to know, is it okay to screenshot?
Oh, please do, yes. I'm going to see if I can like somehow maybe send this to you all as well, if you need access to it.
I didn't want to without your permission.
Oh, yes, yes, please do. And then finally, like, so responsible design, that's most important. There's a lot of things that people who aren't graphic designers don't know about, which is called personal licenses and commercial licenses. So when you use assets that you grab from the internet, or even fonts that you grab from the internet, even with some Canva assets that you use, you don't have access to that. You know, there's a license that you have, so that as you start selling items using those assets and using those things, if somebody's feeling a little antsy, they can turn around and, you know, sue or have some type of kind of legal push against you. And I want to make sure that everyone kind of knows where to navigate if you want to continue to go that path. Any questions so far? I know we started a little late, so I'm going to get smashed everything, but please feel free to raise your hand if you have any other questions. So once again, I said everyone has access to the tools now, but not everyone knows how to use them intentionally. And before a connection reads your name or sees your price, they've already judged your brand. That is your brand, that's your logo, that's your visuals, that's the flyer that you created to push out. Before you speak, no matter, like I said, how good intention you are, no matter how delicious your food is, if a stranger is looking at your flyer and they don't build trust from your brand, if it doesn't engage them to call or order or go to your website, then you lost that. And that's why visual legitimacy is so important. So this section, once again, is called visual legitimacy because your brand speaks before you do. So I'm going to start and give you all some design rules. And this is just some basic pointers. Like I said, we're not going to become graphic designers tonight, but this will help you look legitimate. Design your brand visuals knowing that it's your first impression. So everything that you do, and I'm not a AI. I know enough about AI, but when I come to graphic design, I kind of try to avoid the use of AI, just because I came from a lot of human created visuals. But whether you use AI or not, you just have to understand that this is what people are looking at, and you have to kind of have your unique little points of your brand, and I'll go into that with the 3-3-3 rule, that whether you use AI to put in a prompt or you create it yourself, you want to make sure that everything is consistent. Whether you have $100, $1, or $1 million, you want to look like $1 million brand regardless. So that's my analogy for you. You walk into a room full of millionaires, you show up polished, but your outfit costs $10. But they don't know that if you come poised, you got, her little bracelet can be $10. Maybe the pretentious little millionaire can tell the diamonds are fake, but girl, you're holding yourself well, you're holding yourself poised. It doesn't matter how much your outfit costs, but the way you present yourself communicates value. And branding does the same thing. You can take the expensive look, but use low expensive tools. So that's what I'm going to help you do. Your visuals communicate trust. They communicate quality, professionalism, and personality. And this is why I'm trying to help free people from ChatGPT. Is such a wonderful, great tool to help people. But if you want to have all these things, trust, quality, professionalism, and personality, people are starting to get tired of seeing those visuals. So I'm trying to help create some uniqueness so that it keeps the legitimacy there, because it's getting a little overused at this point. So we're just going to try to help you out with that. So consistency is not boring, but inconsistency is unprofessional. So this is the beautiful thing about creating things in ChatGPT. You put a beautiful prompt in, it creates you a beautiful flyer. But what if you want to create another flyer? It's going to look a little bit different and a little bit different and a little bit. And if you put all your stuff together, it's like, if someone doesn't know it, it's like, is this all coming from the same brand? Of course, it has those things it points out. It may have your logo on it. It has your photo. So it has those identifying things that make someone say, okay, this is this person's brand. But when it comes to trust, does it have the same colors? Or, do you have the same chosen colors, the same chosen font? One day ChatGPT wants to use this little cursive fancy font. Next day it wants to use this like bold, like masculine font. So people are like confused about what your brand is saying to you. And it's those little things that a lot of people don't think about, because obviously you're thinking about, I needed customers in the door, I want to promote this event, I don't have time to learn how to do these things. So ChatGPT, you're going to save me 5 minutes, or you're going to be 5 minutes, you're going to save me hours. But then again, it creates inconsistency. So I'm going to keep this slow. I'm going to keep this on the screen. Y'all can screenshot, take notes, and maybe you can slow down to ask questions, because this is the first part of what I'm offering you, called the Brand Starter Toolkit. This is the 3-3-3 rule. So when you're creating your brand, or if you already have your brand created, I want you to think about the colors that you use. And the 3-3-3 rule is my coin term. Any client that I work with, any client that I teach, I make sure that they have 3 brand colors maximum. So this is about your brand. So if you're thinking about what colors you offer, we'll just talk about me, for example. For my brand, my colors are green, but I mainly also use textures. So mine is kind of a gold and then a nice marble, but I mainly just keep green. And the reason for this is consistency. There's different green shades. So there's a specific green that I use, and there's a color code, and there's a lot of technical things I'm not going to blow your head up with, but there's a nice emerald green. Of course, there's a spring green and a dark green. You want to be consistent with the colors that you use. So when you're thinking about your brand, you go home tonight, you kind of just want to just have a little analysis of your brand. You think about up to 3 colors. And why I say 3 colors and 3 options is because 3 gives you flexibility, to kind of change things, but it's also not too much. You want to say, hey, some people have like a rainbow or something that has a lot of colors, but it may confuse people when you're working with branding. You're like, oh, today I'm going to use some yellow font, and tomorrow I'm going to use green, and then tomorrow I'm going to use this. And it just, like I said, it looks cool to you. Anything that looks good to you, you have to think about the customer as well. Will this person be confused about what you're trying to say and what you're trying to do? So just in your head, it doesn't have to be 3 colors, but I say 3 colors max, because more than that is a little confusing. You can have 1 color or 2 colors, just give yourself a little variety. Same thing with the fonts. A lot of people use whatever font ChatGPT gives them. they don't know what the font is, but font is so important. As you can see, I like to use different fonts. I'm a fancy girl. My brand boutique is luxury, so I like to use a nice, luxurious, kind of thick cursive font, as you see it in Brand Starter Toolkit. Having 3 different fonts. The first font is your primary font. This is your big display font, your hello, your headline font, the font that grabs people's attention. So if you're making a logo and you're using a text logo, you want a logo that's textual that people can see, people find some uniqueness to. Also, like I said, this is something you use every time you want to make a headline, event, sale. This is your main kind of meat font. And then the next font is kind of just your secondary font. This is more for kind of your sub-headlines, or, when you want to use a different display font, but something that's different from your primary font. And then the third one is like your body text. So that's anything for your main text. So if you're adding for events and you just want to use something different than Times New Roman or something, which is the basic font, even that body text and even selecting that is subtle, but it still makes your brand stand out. So those 3 fonts, there's the primary font, the secondary font, and then body text. And then also for logo, you want to make sure to have a primary logo. In the next page, you'll see visual examples. You're trying to figure it out what it looks like in your head. Primary logo obviously is your fancy logo. And I will point out a couple of things, because there's some big brands like Pepsi, they don't need 3 logos, they got 1 because they know what it is. But we're normal people. Sometimes we don't have a Hollywood, you got to get to where Pepsi is at for that, have a Pepsi type logo. But for everything else, you want to have your primary logo. That's your logo that everyone knows about. And then your alternate logo is a logo that you want to use for, let's say you're using a dark background and your primary logo uses black font. So black font or a black background disappears. For an alternate logo, you might want to make white font so that it stands out. And those are the things that you have to think about, because a lot of people just, hey, I got my logo, I'm good. And then when they start making shirts and everything, they're like, I can barely see my logo, because they didn't think about what it looks like on a black background or a brown background or a gray background. And you have to think about how your business is. What is the scope of your business? How many things do you expect to see on a black background for your particular brand? But it's always good just to have that alternative. And then a submark is known as an icon. That is just a little symbol that doesn't have text, just a little small icon, square or circle. And those are just pretty much minimalist logos that represent you, but it's something that needs to go into like a little corner, or something that needs to fit in your profile photo. Because let's say you have a long name and then you take a profile photo, it only crops out half of it. A submark still represents your brand, but it's not, too long. It fits into the parameters of like most social media, or if you're on a flyer with a bunch of other brands and sponsors, yours fits nice and cute if it's, good with a submark. So that's why it's good to have 3 brand colors, 3 fonts maximum, and then 3 logos, the primary, the alternate, and the submark. I know that was a lot, so is there any questions regarding the 3-3-3 rule? All right, great. And then before I go, there's also a little thing, I put a caveat about the transparent logo rule. So when you're creating logos, there's 2 files that most people know. There's like the file extension is what you see at the end when you save stuff. It says .jpg or .png. So the main difference between these little things you see when you're saving file names is the ability to save the logo transparent. So if you're making a logo and you put a little white background behind it, this is a little, like, I would say a nuanced graphic design thing, but I want to help y'all out. Usually when you save it as .png, it removes that little white box in the background. So if you make a really nice logo, and like I said, you want to put it on a t-shirt and you got your logo looking beautiful and there's just a white box around it. Of course, that kind of takes away the value, and people kind of want it to look beautiful, to look bold. So to save it with a .png, like I said, you've seen it in all fashion, you got the logos clean and transparent. If you remove that white box, it will take your brand like eons further, and it's such a simple thing to do. But of course, anyone has any questions on how to do that, I'd be happy to tell you. All right, so 333 rule examples. These are a couple brand boards I made for one, my own brand, and the other is a client that I made as a bakery that's called Sweet Yourself. And as you can see, I have, well, for my own brand, I have 4 because I'm extra, but you can have 3 main logos. And when I was talking about earlier, if you can see for like the Sweet Yourself and even mine's, it's text, it's big, but if you want to try to put that in a little crop profile picture, it would be difficult. So the alternate logo is just another option if you want to use something, like I said, it gives you that variety that keeps your brand consistent, but it's something different. And then the sub mark is just that little icon. As you can see, I made it very social media friendly. So it fits right into profile photos. It doesn't cut it off, and everyone will see who you are in all types of ways that keep you consistent. Also the same thing, like I said, you can use up to 3 fonts, but sometimes 1 or 2 works out. You know, for this particular case, for Sweet Yourself, there's only 2 fonts needed, but it's good to also talk about what type of kind of information you want to communicate when you're using fonts as well. If you have a nice, dainty, feminine brand, you don't want to use a really aggressive font that looks like, you know, you're in a death metal band. You want to look something that's look dainty and nice. So, you know, when you're thinking about fonts, you know, you see that's very cutesy and very feminine because that's her approach. And also, like I said, different types of fonts just gives you a little kind of space to shake up. But if you're wondering what these 2 things are, these are called brand boards. And a brand board is essentially a visual guide for your brand. So it organizes your fonts, your colors, your logos, patterns, textures, and overall design style into one place. So that means ideally, you're not going to be the only person working on your graphics, and we hope you're not. You have so many other things to do. But if you're passing it on to a granddaughter or a cousin or a graphic designer, anyone who's working with your team, or if you're collaborating with a different brand, maybe you want to pass this to them so that they can stay consistent as well. And that's so important to have, because anytime someone's like, what's your fonts, what's your colors, and you're trying to stand there and figure it out, you can hand them this brand board and say, hey, this is everything about my brand right here. No matter who I pass it to, it's going to be consistent across the board, because like I said, that's the visual legitimacy. And your team, like I said, your team, anyone collaborating with your brand can create content that feels consistent, recognizable, and aligned across everything you put out. So if you follow my 333 rule and apply it to a brand board, this will help create visual legitimacy for your brand. All right, so any questions before I move on from that? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, not to take you too far back, but you mentioned how you can show us how to create or where to create logos from. Did you say that?
I didn't, but I do have a, yes.
Okay.
Ooh, well, yeah, no problem. Let me check to make sure we're good on time. Let me see. I gotta look at my notes because I can get wordy, and I know we got a little bit of time. All right, so now we're going to move into resourcefulness and tools. So I'll talk about if your flyer looks like everyone else's, your brand disappears. And this is something that's happening, unfortunately, right now with ChatGPT. It is beautiful, it is wonderful, but if everyone's using it and everyone's doing the same thing, everything looks the same. So if everyone's like, you know, a restaurant and these 2 restaurants are using the same stuff, and then they're using AI created hamburgers and then this and that, and I'm like, how do I know what brand to choose? How do I know which restaurant to go to? How do I know, you know, everything's supposed to be good? So that's really important to make sure that you stand out different. So what I'm offering you now, if everyone wants to start taking notes or you take some screenshots, is the designer bag of tricks. And these are the free tools, the free websites that you can use that will help you have more access to kind of graphic design programs, video editing programs. I didn't even touch about video editing, but that's also a huge thing. And just a couple more tricks that I'll have a little further down. So like I said, the problem with visual shortcuts is then when everyone uses the same templates, the same Canva layouts, the same AI graphics, everything looks identical, and people are growing tired of this. So your edge is knowing what to use when one tool is not enough. So we'll start with Photopea. This is my savior. This is kind of what helped me do Photoshop when I couldn't do Photoshop. It is literally free Photoshop in your browser. I don't know how it did it. It's made from a random guy in Sweden. Him and a couple other people kind of created this. And like I said, Photoshop right now is $30 a month. He pretty much recreated an older version of Photoshop called CS5 that was created about 10 years ago, but still, it is still powerful as anything today. It is completely free. And when you see these, it's a URL, so it's www.photopea.com. You can take a look at it. There are so many tutorials, there's so many steps. It is a powerful program. So if you've never heard of Photoshop or looked at the interface and then you look at that, you might be a little intimidated, but I would say don't be, because there's so many tutorials. But honestly, this is what I always tell people to use and always point to when they're like, oh, I want to use Canva and ChatGPT, but I don't want to pay for Photoshop. I don't want to pay for this. And be like, that's free. And I've been using it since 2013. And the only reason I stopped using it is because, my day career covers the expenses of Photoshop. But if I didn't, I would still be using that program. So I would not skip taking a look at that. Next one, of course, is Try and True. Canva, we all know about it, but Canva is amazing. It offers quick templates and social media graphics. Like I said, if you are not into AI, I believe you can kind of use it and circumvent and, kind of use layouts without using AI. But if you're down with AI, I think they have lots of options for you to generate. But I think a lot of that is like behind a paywall, behind a subscription service. And the whole point of the day is they're trying to make you design nice looking graphics without paying. So that's why I point everybody back to Photopea, because it's free. And when I kind of tell you about these tools on this next page, you can use Photopea for all of that. You can upload free fonts. That's one thing you can't do in Canva. You want to try to upload a free font, it says, "Would you sign up for a $30 business deal?" And I'm like, for a free font, Photopea allows you to upload free fonts, allows you to kind of take your stuff a bit more professional. But we don't got much time, so I'm going to stop talking about Photopea. I could talk about it all day. Next one is CapCut. A lot of people might know about this. I think CapCut might be integrated in TikTok. Yeah. So when you make TikToks or you make you make CapCuts, it's usually like upload to TikTok, and then I don't know, it tries to like charge you to boost your stuff. I don't know what CapCut's doing, but same thing. Once you can walk into it and do a lot of stuff for free. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that's hidden behind paywalls if you want to use a super fancy font, but there's so much to do with the free things. I wouldn't pay for it unless you're balling, but you don't have to. And then Affinity Designer is something that I know about the least, but I have it downloaded. It's another vector program. It's kind of similar to Photopea. It's something that rivals Canva. It's something that a lot of people who are looking for an alternative to Canva push people to. It is something you download on your computer. I don't think you can just access it by using a website, but you download it. Like I said, it's just a piece of software, and it allows you to do vector designs and a lot of kind of professional designs that go beyond the layout-based kind of copy and paste that Canva does. And I just heard this week, like I said, it used to be just a one-time subscription. It's the only thing that I was going to talk about that is paid because it's not subscription-based. I believe it's $50 for the entire program, and then boom, and then you have it for life. But I just heard word, like maybe yesterday or the day before, somebody said Affinity Designer is now 100% free. So that's why I say now free, because it happened so quick I didn't have a chance to kind of double check. But I heard from a birdie that it's free. So these 4 things I think you should check out. At least everyone knows about Canva. But these 4 things will help you outside of using ChatGPT, because although I think they updated their images, like ChatGPT now has Nano Banana 2.0 or something that allows you to have a new image generation. Is kind of like a plateau. It goes up and then, so now it has a new version, but now that new version of images is all going to look the same. Yes.
I used Canva to make my logo transparent, but that was only through the paid version.
Yes.
Is there a free version to make logos transparent?
Photopea. Absolutely. And that's the thing that's unfortunate about Canva. It's like, oh, I want to upload transparent. It's like, oh, subscribe. You want to do this. And I'm like, all right, Canva, you don't got to charge people for that. Like, come on now. So the design rule, we already talked about it. Never rely on one tool. Never rely on one platform. When I was coming up and using Photoshop Paint, I would jump over to this one like pure photo editor. It was just like add contrast, add sharpness. But I figured out a way. And then I would take the file, I'd save it, I'd jump to somewhere else. Took a little while. I had to go through the back door, but it made it look nice and it made it look different. Because sometimes that's what you got to do to make things look a little bit unique these days. All right, so this next one is visual assets. These are the websites that I was talking about where you're going to get your mock-ups. Mock-ups were, I feel like, vital. I feel like the more AI has come up with, generate a group of, people drinking coffee and hanging out, people have used mock-ups less. And what's a mock-up? A mock-up is just a stock image, an image that a photographer takes, and I'll talk about licenses later, but let's say a photographer takes a photo of a group of people. The license is, maybe you have to pay that photographer to use those images. But these websites have those images that you can use for free. In some cases, you can use them commercially. You can put them on your flyers. And like I said, it's real people and real photography. And that's something that's going to kind of round back the visual legitimacy. Because like I said, in this day and age where you see a nice flyer and then you're like, that girl has 4 fingers. And you're like, like it's just those little subtle things that make people like, come on. But if you kind of bring back like just a group of people kind of hanging out, there's nothing wrong with that because it kind of brings back that human authenticity. So like I said, real people connect with real images. As much as possible, try to use real photography. So the first website is called unsplash.com. This gives you beautiful, diverse photos. These are just really professional photography. There's some things you can access for free with everything. And of course, with everything, there's some that are like, premium. But it's so important that I feel like if you want to invest in anything, maybe you should invest in kind of stock photos or what I would suggest is everyone has excellent phones these days. When we were talking about stock photos back in the day, everybody had, a little flip phone. So it's like you couldn't take really strong professional photos. Now, whether you got a Samsung or iPhone or, any basic phone, you could take strong photos. It really brings some legitimacy. Take photos of your friends, take photos of your family. You could take photos of customers or anyone and say, hey, do you mind if I take a photo and put it on my flyer? You could get a free coffee. You could get a free this. A lot of people would love to do that because it helps bring back community. It helps make people feel engaged. What's happening these days is that it seems like the world is forcing everybody away from people, keeping everybody in their house with the convenience of food delivery and everything. So there's just no human connection. So just for somebody to say, hey, can you take a photo to be on my flyer? They're like, oh yeah, because they want to be a little model for a day. It's just these little things that kind of help bring authenticity. But like I said, if you don't have friends or family, if you just want to keep it legitimate, Unsplash is good. Pexels is probably my favorite. Because Pexels is 100% free. Of course, there's like it's a weird little section where there's another website that charges like premium and it's within the site. It is kind of weird, but you'll be able to see it has like a star indicator, but it's kind of weird. It's like another sponsored ad section within it, but Pexels is 100% free. It has a search board, so if you want to look at, somebody like in an elegant dress drinking coffee, like it's really comprehensive and it'll be really helpful. So same thing with Pixabay.com, like I said, it's a large library, a free medium, and Nappy.co is, I feel like, vital, especially for us because it specifically has images of Black and brown people, and we need as much of that as possible, as much as Black and brown people in kind of real photography, real situations, real interactions. So this is such a beautiful site if you just kind of want to use those stock images just to try to push your business forward.
That's good to know. I just did one. I had a graphic yesterday for the chat. I said, could you change these people to people of color, please? And it did. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now, happy, okay.
Yes. And then I have more tools for your bag of tricks. Next, we're going to move on to icons. So we're going to say icons are those little tiny symbols. And I will point out, like, just in the innards of graphic design right now, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, ChatGPT flyers, all they do is use icons. And I'm like, ignore that. Just, ignore this thing, because icons are just really just symbolic ways to kind of add a little flourish to your flyers, not just to kind of break up the monotony of all text. But sometimes it's hard to find ones that look a little unique, look different. Whatever ChatGPT generates, usually generate maybe the same looking icons. These allow you to just have an ability to kind of look through and add any icons without charging. So like I said, there's Flat Icon, there's Icons 8, and there's the Noun project. Moving to fonts, I feel like this is an important section because fonts are very important. Like I was talking about your 333 brand rules last time. You want to find a font that helps accompany your brand, that helps support what your brand is offering. The one thing I just, that just kills me every time is I see, like I said, such a beautiful, like, feminine font, or not feminine font, but feminine brand, trying to speak to women, and the font is so aggressive. It's so like, and I'm like, that's whatever ChatGPT gave them, and I'm like, you need to find something that kind of supports your brand, that kind of just lets people have that trust, kind of loosen their shoulders, So you want to, if you have a nice little spa brand, you could probably in your head think about what type of font you would be seeing in your eyes if you want something. Like I said, if you want to go to, like, you clubbing all night and doing something, you want something that's a little bold, a little wake you up. These fonts kind of help you. So when you're thinking about your logo, these are available to choose. I'll get later about personal license versus commercial license, because I so hold that thought, because that's also important as well. And then colors are very important. I was talking about choosing your 3 colors for your brand. Well, of course, you could be like, well, I like this color, and this color. And may all be well and good, but there are some design principles behind colors. You have to have colors that complement, colors that are accessible to people. Some people have color blindness, or simply some colors may not pair well. I seen someone with a flyer, and it was like, but they had a gray background and yellow text, and the font was like 6, and I was like, baby, that is very, very hard to read. And they probably didn't think about it. They were just like, oh, yeah, gray and yellow probably look good together. But if it's sitting, on a wall from this far away, and you're trying to grab someone's attention, they're not reading that. So what this color website does, colors.co, Adobe Color and Color Hunt, is if you have a flagship color, you're like, I want my color to be royal blue, but I don't know about any colors that will accompany them, that'll be good. You can put the exact color blue that you want, and it'll come up with complementary colors, based on the color psychology, based on the color wheel, that will be more industry foundational, so that just kind of keeps that legitimacy. And yeah, it just helps you keep your brand together, beautiful, and kind of following everything together. So the design inspirations, also, if you're looking for great designs for inspiration, because that's how I came up. It's like, how do you know what a good design is? You look at good designs. Sometimes when you're seeing a sea of ChatGPT, you may personally not know where to look for great designs. Good artists who are actually using their knowledge and skills to make it. And there's nothing wrong with looking at, okay, what do you like about that flyer? What makes you feel comfortable about looking at this person's flyer? And then trying to kind of match those principles and idea when you're creating your own branding or your website or your flyer or your social media. So at the bottom, where you can go for design inspiration from great artists is Behance, and these are all like websites, so behance.com, Dribbble, and of course, Pinterest is tried and true. Unfortunately, Pinterest, a lot of that's starting to become more AI. And it might be hard for people to tell the difference. and every day it's getting kind of harder. It's hard for me to tell, and I've kind of been in it. But Behance mainly would probably have some indication if it's created with AI and not, because I know that's something that's very important for people. A lot of people like to kind of follow and be inspired by human created visuals. Other people may not care that much. I do want to point that out, just in case that is a point of importance for you. Because studying great design trains your eye, and your eye is your greatest tool. And now we're moving on to responsible design. Let me see how much time I got left. Ooh, 10 minutes. I'm going to be a little fast. We're almost done now. I think we're at the end. So the design rule is every design choice carries responsibility, legal, ethical, and inclusive. So you want to make sure that you have high design responsibility. And first we're going to talk about commercial licensing, because free doesn't always mean free for business use. So that photo you found on Google, the photographer can invoice you for using it. And you can't say, oh, what you send me an invoice for? You can. That person may own that, and if you used it without consent or paying for a license, they have every right to do it. It's one of those situations where a lot of people will be like, oh, it couldn't be me. Oh, they're not going to catch me. I'm from Pittsburgh. Ain't no one going to get me. Like, and the next thing you know, maybe they do catch you. It might be one of 100 chance, but based on how much they could, sue you for, it's really not worth the risk. So you just kind of want to be mindful when you're using assets. Like especially Canva may indicate it. Like I said, some assets you use in Canva that you're not allowed to use it commercially. So you just kind of want to be mindful of looking at that. I would Google commercial licensing, and it will give you a bunch of a full explanation. Let's say if I had lots of time today, I would kind of break that down. But I feel like that's so important to protect you legally when you're using visual assets. Like I said, there's something called personal use, personal licensing, and that's if you're, making something for your family, your friends, you're making shirts for your family and friends, you can do it like that. But as soon as you start selling it in your store or, putting it on the cover of your book, that's when it gets into commercial, and that's when someone will probably need to get some type of collaborative pay or at least some permission. And a lot of these websites, you'll be able to see it. It'll usually have licensing information on a photo. It'll say commercial license. Sometimes it asks you to upgrade, but there's some things like Pexels when I go back. There's a lot of pictures on that website where it says open for commercial use, and you need to look out for that, because that means, oh, cool, I could put it on my coffee mugs and everything, and they won't jump on you. So the next thing we're moving on is to visual accessibility. And this is the main thing that people kind of forget about. And it's understandable if you're not a graphic designer, but it's so important because every customer is a potential to be your customer, and you don't want to polarize anyone without you understanding. So, of course, I was talking about fonts earlier. You can make something for yourself, and you can say, I can see it, I can read it, but you have to think about beyond you. There's some people who have, reading issues, physical issues with sight, like I said, color blindness. So you have to be understanding of, okay, I'm making a flyer. You don't want to make it in 4 font because not everyone may be able to see that. You want to think about something that anyone can see. And I know there's some industries like, if you're going to a party and club, you're not thinking about 63-year-old grandma's going to be reading this club flyer. So there's some industries, I just feel like it's just a standard, you should make it. But, like I said, if you're offering a service or, if you have, you're baking goods, you might understand that anyone from 10 to 100 is going to be reading and looking at your flyer, and you don't want to, lose a customer without you realizing, because they, it's hard for them to read, it's hard for them to see. So when it comes to visual accessibility, there's a whole, hours and hours of training you can do about it. But for today, just make sure when you're creating things, make sure that your font is readable. You see my headline font, Design is a Decision. That's beautiful, but imagine if I, put that in 12 font on a full page of text. And you're like, okay, I can't read that at all. And also understanding the kids can't read. The kids can't read cursive these days. They've took cursive out of schools. So if you're like I say, if you're making a flyer for kids, you probably don't want to use cursive font because they probably can't read it. So it's just, you have to kind of think 2 steps ahead about visual accessibility. If you're working with a lot of older people, make sure that the font is big, that they can see it. Make sure that the font's not crazy colored, make sure that it's pretty straightforward, because that's very important to make sure that your brand is inclusive, and everyone, like I said, has that legitimacy. Everyone, no matter, their age or specification, feels comfortable and ready to help and work with your brand. And then finally is strategic AI use. AI is useful for brainstorming and drafting, but it shouldn't replace your creative identity. Your personality is not something that AI can replicate. Now, I am someone who, I am very neutral when it comes to AI usage. Like I said, it's a beautiful, wonderful thing. I know jokingly, I don't know everybody, I want to show my age, but I think I'm okay, other than beautiful young girl in my matching outfit. But everybody watched Terminator, and I'm a millennial, so I feel like growing up in the '90s, during that time was most of the movies that said, ooh, artificial intelligence or robots are going to destroy us and destroy the world and everything. So there's a lot of people, and and it's lovingly, who are very anti-AI, and I call them the Sarah Connors of the world, because everything, there's some understanding with AI, and a lot of people are concerned about it. And I think what's important as a business owner is this kind of understanding AI and your stance on it. And, I'm not here to, everybody's creating a war and gangs, and everybody thinks it's gang colors. Like, you got AI, I'm anti-AI, and how dare you? And, the beautiful thing and wonderful thing is this, to have understanding and empathy. So what I notice a lot about the usage of AI is you have to decide. You can't really have your foot halfway in the water with AI, because unfortunately it is polarizing to some people. So like I said, more and more that people are using ChatGPT flyers and they're looking the same. It's unfortunately causing people to be like, oh, it's looking the same. I won't support this event, or I won't do this. Unintentionally, no matter how good intentioned you are, or no matter how great your product is, there are some people who are going to have pushback to using AI, or there's going to be some people who are going to express environmental concerns about using AI. And what I've noticed from a lot of business owners is arguing with people, about it, because they're like, oh, I don't care, I'm getting my money. I'm getting my money AI. Y'all need to get with the program. Or, some other people are saying, I'm using AI because it saved me. I created a flyer in 5 minutes. But then they spent the next 2-3 hours arguing and defending themselves about the use of AI. The whole point is you can use AI, but understand that there's going to be pushback. I feel like just kind of educating yourself on the usage of AI and understanding the beautiful help of it. It could help you in the back end and everything. But if you're creating a flyer and someone gives you pushback, I feel like just kind of understanding and working with people, trying not to argue with people. Is this something that you need to just kind of think about and consider for your brand? I'm not saying use AI. I'm just saying that there are beautiful people on both sides. So if you decide to use AI, there is AI, an AI community that will fully embrace you. But there are also people who choose not to use AI. I just find a lot of people and entrepreneurs who are using it to, like I said, assist, to help with their business, to help save time. But then they're kind of getting into these tit for tats and these arguments and like negativity. And it's just the understanding that somebody, if you use it, they're going to get pushed back, and you just got to kind of have a kind of, I wouldn't say thick skin, but just, try not to argue with people. I feel like, hey, like I said, there's an AI community that will embrace you, and then there aren't. But I think what's important for strategic AI use is just to use it responsibly. That's all. Yeah, I think that's really is what's important, is that, today you can still use it for prompts and everything. But if someone walks in your business like, I seen you using an AI flyer, you could be like, girl, get out of my face. Or you could kind of respond kind of professionally, maybe kind of understand the impact, have, it's up to you to kind of, engage or not, but just kind of understand that people just have that concern. But at the same time, if you embrace it, just stand 10 toes down about embracing it. But understand that regardless if you use it or not, there's ways that can help you with visual legitimacy. There's AI pros and experts that will probably help you create prompts and everything, where you can collaborate using what I learned today and say, hey, you could probably use a prompt that says, I want to use these 3 fonts and these 3 colors and 3 everything, which will make yours look a little different from, the logos and ChatGPTs that everything's creating now, because it's using some type of template. So like I said, regardless of your choice, just make sure that you're responsibly informed. Make sure that you're understandably knowing that someone may walk up and give you a little pushback, whether it's on the internet or not, brush it off, or, provide some, automated lines to give people about it. But either way, it's a great tool to use on the back end. But if you're trying to look unique as of right now, there probably things will change. I would suggest that you just try to kind of use some different tools just to try to make your brand stand out and look unique. So that was a thick portion. Is there any questions before we move on?
I was just gonna make a comment on an image that I created on AI. It was walking on eggshells. I wanted women walking on eggshells, and the feet were backwards.
Oh my.
Could you make these feet backwards?
And that's the thing. Like, I have to. So there's a lot of people anti-AI. I'm someone who has known about the growth. I've been following AI for like over 5 years. There's like a joke called Will Smith eating spaghetti, because there was a video of him, and it looked terrible, but you see the innovations of how it moved. There's just a lot of beautiful innovations to AI, but sometimes things like that happen, and we kind of laugh at it. I've used AI and tried to use AI. I don't like using AI because I find myself arguing with it. You feel me? Make it backwards. I'd be like, now why you make the feet backwards? And I'm like, I'm arguing with and that's what I decided to stop. But sometimes, it's very helpful. So that is that. I'm going to kind of speed through this because it's 7:01. AI should be the voice at the table, not the person running the meeting. So in short, AI is good to save you time with accounting and everything on the back end. It can maybe teach you how to use something. So you're like, hey, I want to use Photopea. I don't know how to do it. Maybe you can use the prompt that says, hey, I want to learn how to create this flyer. Can you create me instructions on how to do it? So it sits on the back end, but you just kind of don't want to rely on it 1,000%, because once again, it's just going to generate those ChatGPT flyers that everyone's kind of like, it looks the same. And I don't want any of you to lose a customer or lose business because they're like, I looked at that flyer, realized it's AI, and I don't want to support it. Because that's literally what people are saying, and I don't want you to lose people. But at the same time, you're like, I don't want you here anyway with your attitude, So it's up to you. Like I said, it's up to you. And then that's it. If you have any questions, I know you're all asking as you go, but if you have any general questions about overall or a question that's not covered here, like I said, we got a couple probably minutes to cover, and if you just have any general comments about AI, life, creating brands, color choices.
Now, on the visual, being inclusive, my students from CMU changed my website so that, what was that terminology about the visibility for those who might?
Usually it's called specifically ADA accessibility. Yeah.
But I didn't like the color. I didn't like the color that it came back with. It changed my brand color.
Oh.
So I had to figure out. I'm gonna check out some of these and see, because I don't mind changing it, but I didn't like that change.
Yeah. Sometimes depending on what kind of website builder you use, and I may be creating this in my head, but sometimes there's an option to. I think this is called print mode or readability mode for the website. I feel like more and more when it comes to accessibility, on your phone browser, it'll be able to kind of switch to a plain text website, so that if you can have a flash, this is not ADA accessible, but if, like I said, if I push the button and said made ADA accessible, it would make everything just plain text. Yeah, that's the beauty of a screen. And that's, I mean, I can slide that into, sometimes screens are different. So if you're creating, because the color is kind of more of a dark green, but also, this is a little caveat, sometimes they look a little different on screens. And that's something you kind of expect. But yeah, see if there's, did I answer? I'll just make sure I'm answering your, or if I covered.
Kinda, I don't even know, I forgot what the question was. I was just making a statement.
Yeah, I know you're just talking about, yeah.
So I was gonna say, I was just saying, I would look at some of those, some of the things you gave us to see if I can find the color that's closer to what I want, to make sure it's accessible.
Yeah, and like I said, connecting again, like I said, I'm not sure what website builder you're using, but if you, I'm trying to think of a good phrase to Google. Sometimes there's like I said, there's a converter, and I feel like there's more in just the website browsers, like I said, that converts everything to make sure that it is readability. But there is, and it's actually a WPXI article, I feel like a few months ago, where people are actually getting fined. Your website can get fined if it does not match ADA compliancy. And it's funny, I actually, oh my goodness, I just realized I created a workbook that follows ADA compliancy, and then I didn't even share it with anybody. But yeah, there's, like I said, there's a list of guidelines. I would Google that just for your own information in the future, because it's good to know and good to pass on.
Yeah, because I think what you're talking about, someone said, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but eventually more people are gonna get sued if they're not. So you need to go ahead and get compliant now.
Yes, that's very important. And like I said, I believe everyone's on like a news, like, because like I said, I created that worksheet, and I have no problem like giving it. I made it so it could be a free worksheet, so everybody can make sure their websites are ADA compliant. And I didn't share it, but it's very useful to have, because like I said, yeah, people are literally getting fined, and you can't circumvent that.
It's too late, you can email it to us.
Yeah.
If you want to send it to me, I can, I have everyone's email.
Okay, yeah, I would love to. I would do that, and if I have no problem kind of sending these slides as well. I know everybody was taking notes and taking screenshots, but all these slides have valuable information, so if you want to have it, you can. And then finally, you don't need a bigger budget, you just need a better strategy. If anyone is personally interested in working with me, I offer workshops in design education, which is what you attended today. Also brand consultations, so that's someone where you're looking to start a brand and you want to kind of get help on everything I talked about today, because it's a lot. I kind of help assist with that, creative strategy sessions. So that's for already established brand. You're like, how can I use my visual assets to kind of grab new customers, get attention, do that, refresh my brand to kind of fall in line with social media, because there's a lot that comes with that, and it's generational, like Gen Z and everything versus Gen Beta. There's a whole different branch of advertising and visual assets, and that's a whole different thing. So that's part of a creative strategy session. And then the Canva Exit Plan course is a course that I'm working on that is a Photopea course, because I wanted to create a program to teach people how to use Photopea and teach people how to use those assets and tools that are locked behind Canva's premium subscription. So that's how to upload fonts and how to make things transparent. I am working on that, but I'm thinking of expanding it, because Adobe Photoshop is also charging $70 a month right now. Canva's charging $30 for business, but Adobe's insane. So I'm like trying to I need to get them out of Adobe too. So I'm thinking about just changing the name, just calling it like the subscription plan exit course, because like I said, it teaches people how to use Photopea, because I feel like once you learn that tool, there's really no other tools that you need. And my website is ebonycandesign.com. You can please take a visit. I have my 20 years of portfolio up there. Also any information that you need to contact me with. And yeah, if you want to set anything up, including, are we doing raffle or?
Yes.
Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.